How's it going, Twitch? My name is Skull, and on behalf of East Asia Soft, welcome to today's stream. Today is Sunday, which means that it's time for me to continue my playthrough of SeaBed, a Yuri visual novel, which I have been loving quite a lot. So let's go ahead and continue and see what is going on. So most recently, we found out that green-haired girl Takako is in a hospital for some reason, has memory problems, and the black-haired girl Sachiko is staying at a hotel in the mountains of Japan. So let's go ahead and see what happens next, shall we? Got my water here. Very important. Stay hydrated. Light filtered in through the window, painting the room in a pale bluish hue. The windows seemed to have frosted over during the night. I could even spot a small icicle extending from the roof. The courtyard visible through the window was now blanketed in white. I heard the floor creak. A tiny bead of water traveled down the shaft of the icicle before soundlessly dropping to the ground below. Evening, Dim. The withered grass crunched like shaved ice under my feet. There was a small hill with a camphor tree in the center of the courtyard. Its branches extended from its trunk in complex patterns reminiscent of lightning, forming an awe-inspiring canopy that sparkled beautifully in the morning dew. A tranquil silence fell upon the area, giving the impression that the entire world had entered a deep slumber. The flower beds surrounding the hill had all withered in the morning sun. A gardening cart that had been forgotten nearby was half full of rainwater. I kept listening as the frosty air chilled my skin. One of the tree branches shuddered, sending drops of dew to the ground. I looked up and spotted a small bird with a long tail among its leaves. I continued listening. This time I heard a knocking sound. I stepped on the thin ice, making it crack under my feet. Oh, that's fine, Dim. You know, you get what you want. Scarlet's a great game, in my opinion. I stopped at a place just a little ways away from the courtyard. What is this? I looked up at the towering pole before me, its tip backdropped by a sky of light clouds. There was a pulley and a rope attached to said tip, so it's a flagpole. Another gust of wind swept across the frozen grounds, making the metallic parts attached to the rope hit against the wooden pole with a knocking sound. It looked like a flagpole, but I saw no trace of a flag anywhere. Oh, those are fun. Those are both great games. I especially love Untitled Goose Game. I spent a few moments looking at the noisy pole, trying to imagine what kind of flag it once bore, when I suddenly heard something else. It sounded like a person's voice coming from the main entrance of the mansion. I thought I heard Nane's laugh. Upon returning to the mansion, I came upon Nane chatting with a couple of children riding bicycles. I couldn't make out what they were talking about, but judging from her swaying shoulders, it seemed like Nane found the conversation amusing. "Today's the day I catch the River King, I swear!" That's some confidence. The children all wore waist bags and backpacks. I could spot fishing rods poking out from some of them. "I saw it just the other day. It was this big. I saw a bigger one. It was like this." "You idiots! The king of the river can't be that small. It's gotta be at least this big." The children opened their arms wide, trying to show off how large a size they were thinking of. "Don't forget to bring some for me, too." "Huh? You think I let you keep your bicycles and use my river for free? That's dirty. You gotta play dirty now and then to survive in the world. Everyone gets an equal share then." With that, the children began pedaling their bicycles and rode off towards the woods. "Oh, I'm having a guest right now, so don't forget her share either." "Seriously?" "It was a mistake to stop here." Nane sounded another one of her hearty laughs. Be careful out there. She waved the children goodbye. Good morning. Oh, good morning. Nane looked behind her shoulder in response to my greeting. They're kids from the town. Apparently, they plan to fish here today, said Nane, noticing me stare at their receding backs. What were you talking about? Food. We might get some fresh fish for dinner tonight. I see. Provided they manage to catch anything, that is. You could have taught them how to make a bamboo net. That's a good idea, but those kids don't know when to stop. So, yeah, Pokemon Day tomorrow. I'm going to sleep straight through the presentation because I'm staying up tonight for a stream on my channel. Nane shrugged her shoulders. So I'll just sleep in and then watch it when I wake up. Do they come here a lot? Plenty of places to play around here. Mountains, rivers, lakes. This area is open to the public. We even have a library. Nane pointed at a building further in the distance. I see. That aside, what are you doing outside so early in the morning? Did something happen? No, I was just curious about something. Nane glanced in the direction I came from. Oh, that is convenient, Dim. Oh, so you found out. Only because of this windy weather. Might have been a different story otherwise. I was planning to let you enjoy the mystery for a while longer. Damn the stupid wind, it ruined everything on the first day. Another breeze swept across the courtyard, carrying some leaves and a few leftover golden petals from the withered flowers. And there was that knocking sound in the distance again. Nane let out another guffaw. You okay with toast for breakfast? If you have hot coffee to go with it. Of course we do. I'll prepare it right away. Oh man, that's a nice looking dining room. The pleasant smell of baking bread filled the room. It reminded me of the bakery near my house when I was little. I used to buy bread from them every morning. Their entrance had a huge pink sign in the shape of a rabbit. Also, I kind of hate that the back of my chair is the same color as my shirt. It makes me look a little wider than I actually am. Anyway. I held a tray, a pair of tongs, and some money. The fragrant scent of baking bread, the sweet aroma of fresh confectionery, butter, and jam would completely overwhelm me. After a few moments of hesitation, I would always pick melon bread and sausage rolls. Sometimes I'd run into Takako. She often bought the rabbit bread, which came in the same shape as the sign above the entrance. What was the name of that bakery again? Do you like your eggs fully fried, or... Nane's words pulled me back to reality. The cafeteria at the end of the corridor and to the left from the lobby had a room shaped like a fan with several windows on its arched wall. There was also a bar counter by one of the walls. Nane had been preparing breakfast behind it. I'll have whatever you recommend. I'm not picky about food. All right, then I'll do yours like my own, fully fried. A warm-colored sofa and the dim lighting in the room gave the cafeteria a vintage feel that you'd have found in many coffee shops a decade ago. It reminded me of the cafe I used to frequent. Through the window, I could see the leaves of the tree in the courtyard. I'll go with almost fully fried. Okay. Oh, there you go, Dim. Very important. A sizzling sound reminiscent of heavy applause followed, accompanied by the appetizing smell of frying bacon spread across the room. I watched the apron-clad Nane do her work behind the counter. After confirming the temperature of the frying pan, she picked up 2 eggs from a bowl, broke them open with one hand, then dropped both into the pan. Are we going to get a picture of the food? I heard another applause. Nope, no food. Not today. Here you go. She placed the coffee pot she held in her left hand and the basket of bread she held in her right on the leather-covered table. After that, she slid the 2 plates she held under one arm to her free hands and nimbly lined them on the table before sitting down in front of me. "You're pretty good with your hands. You just have to figure out how the center of mass works. Anyone can do it with a bit of training." Ah, perfect, Em. And, hey, makes sense. "Would you like more coffee?" "Yes, please." As I waited, she refilled the cup I had emptied with a fresh serving of steaming coffee, then placed it in front of me. "Well then, let's eat." "Yes." The toast was just the right hue of golden brown. She was good at this. Using my knife, I scooped up some butter from the jar Nane handed me, savoring its alluring fragrance. After spreading the butter on her toast, Nane placed some cabbages, some bacon, and a fried egg on it. Once she was done, she began nibbling away at the bread. It didn't turn out too bad." She said that with her eyes closed while confirming the taste. The wet cabbages sparkled in the light. I placed only a piece of fried egg on mine before taking a bite. My teeth penetrated the crunchy outer layer and reached the soft, warm insides. It was only lightly toasted, but it felt just right. She was definitely good at this. "I'll have to finish cleaning the room, so would it be okay if I showed you the place this evening?" said Nane after taking a sip of her coffee. "Sure. It's been a while since we had such clear weather. I want to hang the laundry outside before it's too late." After letting out a sigh, Nane leaned against her chair and stretched her neck. I glanced outside the window to see a girl walking on the stone path in the courtyard. "Did you see someone there?" Nane noticed my gaze as she opened her eyes. "Yes." "I bet it's the library." "Huh?" "There's a library building just next to ours. The books there are pretty old, but it's a big place and has quite a selection, as long as you don't want anything modern. If you like reading, you should check it out." This can't be a coincidence. All of this cannot be a coincidence. Do you have any plans until the evening? Not really. I see. This can't be a coincidence. The place looks the same. There's a library next door that they're even talking about. This can't be a coincidence. I felt the sweet smell grow more distinguishable as I continued down the stone path. I made out the hedgerow Nane told me about right away. It extended further along the path up until it disappeared behind the west wing of the mansion. I continued down the path, covered by golden petals, until I saw a round roof beyond the hedge. 2 large wooden doors barred the entrance to the library. This can't be a coincidence. I slowly pushed one of them open, making its rusty hinges creak in response. Dust filled my nostrils as the sunlight making its way into the room through the partially open door painted a rectangular patch of light on the library's floor. The spacious, cylinder-like room had bookcases lining its walls. It had a small staircase on the other end, leading to an alcove with a huge window that circled around the entire building. The dome-shaped ceiling had a circular window, an oculus in the middle, that let slightly more light into the otherwise relatively dim interior. The door closed as I pulled my hand off it, isolating all sounds from the outside and giving way for white noise. The middle-aged woman at the counter turned her gaze to me. Do I know her? I gave her a small nod. She smiled back at me in response before returning to her work. Click, click. The clicking of my shoes was the only sound bouncing off the round walls of the interior. For some reason, it felt somewhat slow to my ears. The bookcases in the center of the hall resembled the giant stone tablets of some ancient ruin. The light seeping in from the ceiling illuminated a few of them, making the grains of dust in the vicinity sparkle and silver. I tried opening one of the books, but it was from a publisher I'd never heard of. I ultimately gave up on trying to find something interesting, and instead chose to find a comfortable place where I could read the books I brought myself. After passing a few more bookcases, I found a somewhat bigger space with a few desks and some chairs for reading. Some books and a whole heap of notes rested on one of the desks. I don't know her. Beyond the desk, I spotted a girl on a stepladder looking at one of the shelves. I found a one-person desk next to the window. I sat down and took out some of my books. After removing my silver bookmark, I began scanning the text from the right. The girl I spotted earlier returned to her desk as I was turning a page. She placed the small tower of books she'd been carrying on the desk, then pulled out her chair. Fun fact about... She's writing something down in English. I can't read what it says, but that is definitely English, not Japanese. Right down there. What I was about to say is fun fact about Japanese. When you read Japanese, if it's text that reads up, down, you read it right, left. But if it's text that reads side to side, you read it left, right. You will sometimes in older texts, like hundreds of years old, find text that's written right to left instead, but for the most part, that's the general rule. If it's top down, right, left, side to side, left, right. Just a little fun fact there for y'all. Her long hair fluttered in the wind as she sat down. Without so much as giving me a single glance, the girl opened a large book and placed it in front of herself, hiding her entire frame from view. I returned my attention to my own book. I had to flip a few pages back to find the line where I left off. The fluorescent lamps on the walls illuminated the page. By the time I closed the book, the inside of the building had gotten dark, with only barely noticeable slivers of orange light coming from the ceiling window. The girl was still at her desk, jotting something down in her notebook. I pulled up my sleeve and checked my watch. I stood up, pushed the chair back into its place, and left the library. The woman at the counter was nowhere to be seen anymore. I pulled one of the doors open with another loud creak and had a gust of wind blow straight into my face, propelling the sedentary dust of the room into the air. The west wing of the mansion was right in front of the library. The branches of the courtroom's large oak peeked out from behind the building. The entire scenery wore an orange tint. I spotted someone walking down the corridor inside the mansion. The silhouette of a woman with tied-up hair turned the corner and disappeared from sight. I was walking along the hedgerow with my eyes fixed on the window when I heard voices from the courtyard. It's not that young anymore. How old was she again? Her 55th birthday was last month. People in the Showa period retired around that age. Nane and a man wearing blue work clothes were talking in front of the back door. Lightly touching the brim of his hat, the man made a small bow to Nane before turning around to leave. Nane noticed me and turned the handle to close the half-open door. Oh, hello, Sachiko. What was that? I was just paying for the gas. What were you talking about? Oh, nothing, just some local gossip. I was just about to go to your room. We promised to have a walk together. I hope you didn't forget. What about your duties? I've already finished all there was to do, and my guess is that you've been in the library. Yeah. I'm glad you found a place to relax. She cocked her head and gave me a light smile. Can I come like this? Of course. Good. Then let's go over there first. Turning away from the mansion, Nane started toward the other end of the courtyard. After taking a few more steps, she glanced behind her shoulder with a smile, checking to see if I was following her. Oh, that's pretty. We continued down the path, stretching beyond the library and all the way to the forest in the mountains. Look, it's a camellia! Following Nane's finger, my gaze fell upon a host of pink flowers blooming in a nearby thicket. Nane stretched on her tiptoes to reach one of the branches. I'll take one. She twisted her hand, breaking off the branch with 2 flowers on it. After giving it a scrutinizing look, she showed it to me. Oh, okay, Dim. See you when you get back. I was thinking of putting these up at the entrance. What do you think? I see. So these flowers were locally picked. Well, gotta take advantage of the fact that we live so close to nature. It does make more civilized things like shopping a bit of a pain, though. She hugged the branch to her chest. Don't you find winter bloomers somewhat more refined? Nane's question came out of nowhere. After some brief consideration, I agreed with her. That might be true, yeah. Especially compared to the flowers that always predictably bloom in the summer. I know, right? Winter takes its toll on all living things, but if you look around, there's still flowers blooming even in conditions like that. It makes me respect nature a lot more. Oh, I'm seeing some Japanese camellia blooming over there. Nane looked toward the other side of the stream by the road. A few red camellia petals were drifting along in the water. I also spotted some blue gentiana flowers blooming in the shrubbery. There's a lake further down this way. Let's go! Oh, that's pretty. We passed through a dark thicket and came out onto an opening with a lake. The image of the mountain, crowned by greenery, was reflected upside down on its crystal clear surface. Upon descending the path running somewhat above the lake surface, we came onto what seemed like an animal trail. The water of the lake was clear enough for me to see down to the bottom. The surface was calm, with only the odd breeze disturbing its stillness from time to time. I can't see them today. Nane was looking toward the lake with one hand above her eyes to block out the sun. Following her gaze, I saw a row of ducks sailing on the water. Were you looking for a bird? Yeah, I spotted some unusual ones just the other day. She pointed at the water with her other hand. You can see those ducks by the reeds, right? Yes. Those are mainly Eurasian widgeons, with a few Eurasian coots mixed in. The ones with brown heads are widgeons, the black ones are coots. I can also see a couple with white spots on their beaks. Those are coots. I see. Every bird that quacked or squeaked in the background, Nane named. The same went for each unique type of grass or bush we passed. Is it okay if we make a little detour? Asked Nane around the time we reached the middle portion of the path by the lake. It gets slippery here, so be careful. The narrow path stretching out to the side had barely half the width of the beaten path we were using. The steps leading up the hill were basically just a bunch of moss-covered rocks aligned in a row. It won't take long. The place I want to reach is just up these steps. Nane took a step up the rocks and stretched out her free hand toward me. As I took hold of it, Nane easily pulled me up in a surprising display of strength. The sound of running water intensified as we climbed upwards. Oh, it's a waterfall. Hey! Nane, who reached the top ahead of me, started waving to someone. Oh, it's Nane! I came to see how you were doing! Nane let out a hearty laugh. She then gave me her hand again, pulling me up to the top as well. Oh, it's the kids. The moment I stepped on even ground, I realized the sound I'd been hearing belonged to a waterfall. I could smell splashing water. The path led us to a human-sized rock rising above the bank of the waterfall. Below us, two boys with fishing rods were staring at the water. "Weren't you only worried about the fish?" "Look, Nane!" I heard the second voice from the opposite end of the river. A third boy seized a rope dangling from one of the trees, and after taking a few steps back, swung across the river. "Ah!" Or "ah!" He sounded a Tarzan-like howl and painted a wide arch in the air before landing on another decently sized rock further away from us. The rope in the tree branches it was attached to creaked under his weight. He let go of the rope and began energetically waving at us. "Hey! I don't want to see you do that ever again! What if you fall and break your neck?" "Eh?" The boy pressed his fingers against his cheeks in an attempt to mimic the exaggerated expression of a certain Munch painting. "I thought you came here to fish." "Wow! I knew you only came here for the fish." "Don't worry, I love you all just right next to the fish." Nane let out a laugh as she descended the little path from the rock. "So, did you catch anything?" "Huh? Don't you guys feel colder all of a sudden?" said one of the boys at the bank with a smile. "Yeah, I think it's about time we start packing up," replied the boy that crossed the river. Let's see." Finishing her descent, Nane crouched in front of the fish basket. "Oh, you've caught some chars. 4, 5, 6. Oh, this one's pretty big." "Hey, that one's mine," said one of the boys, wiping his wet hair with a handkerchief. "Who's that lady, Nane?" "A new friend." "She's our guest." "Hello." "Hello!" The boy who previously asked who I was met my modest greeting with a deep bow. The other two boys with fishing rods also bowed. "Make sure there's something for me and my guest, okay?" "You can have this." The boy pointed at the biggest fish in the basket. "For me? Thank you." "Oh, what about me?" "You can have this." He pointed at the smallest fish. "You've got some guts, kid." That was funny. So is this the same building as Takako or not? And if it is, like, is this the same time of year? What gives? Like, I am so confused. I love this background, though. It's pretty. "Make sure to head straight home." "We know." The boys disappeared behind the corner. "Well then, I think it's time for us to head back as well." With that, she turned toward the direction of the mansion. We took a road along the mountain on our way back. Nane carried a bundle of winter flowers under one arm while holding the basket of fish we received from the children. "I was planning to just casually show you around, but I guess I ended up forcing all this extra legwork on you. Sorry about that." When Nane looked my way, I shook my head in response. "It was fun." "Glad to hear it." "I see you like children." Nane considered the mountain slope for a moment. "I do. Besides, it's more dangerous around here than you'd think. Still, I wouldn't go so far as to forbid the kids from climbing in the mountains. I know the parents of all the children that come here, so I can't help getting worried every time a group is late to return." Nane slightly raised her chin and narrowed her eyes. The part of the sky she gazed at still had some faint remnants of blue light. The moon above was full and shone with a bright, dazzling silver. I could hear the sound of splashing water near the rocks below us. The river, too, was clear enough to see through. The rocks resting at the bottom sparkled in the moonlight. From time to time, a fish with black spots would swim by as well. "Look! A halcyon!" A colorful bird colorful bird flew along the calm stream. The feathers on its back glittered in blue, even in this lighting. I wonder if it's trying to catch a fish. I think so. They tend to land on the branches above the water, and once a fish passes by, they instantly make a move on it. When there are no conveniently placed branches, they just hover above the surface. They're well known for their incredible ability to track down and catch fish. I see. This one seems to be really good at its job. Just look at how steady its flight is. Sometimes you can see them having trouble matching the flow of the river, jerking back and forth. I imagine they eventually learn how to do it correctly by watching their parents or siblings. Shortly after the halcyon abruptly disappeared from view, I heard a splash of water. A moment later, it had already landed on a branch with a fish in its beak. Oh wow! We were lucky to see that! Indeed. The trees littered the mountain slope on the other side of the river had crowns the color of autumn. The sky above them had now turned completely dark. Yeah. Let's grill this fish when we get back. We can make sashimi out of the big one, but most river fish go better with salt, said Nane after a long period of silence. You're the boss. What? Your energy and easygoing attitude reminded me of someone. Oh? How so? She was an oddball too. Hey, you calling me an oddball? Nane raised her arms and shrugged her shoulders, seemingly trying to confirm her own appearance. I couldn't help but chuckle. She answered me with a mischievous smile. Dinner's going to be ready in a heartbeat. I'll drop by your room once it's done. All right. A whole bunch of plates lined the table in our cabin today. A red plate with thinly sliced ham, a basket with bite-sized pieces of French bread. Oh, Lord. Steam billowed from the yellow casserole plate. It was filled with sautéed eggplants, tomatoes, carrots, and a soft-boiled egg for topping. The plate with lamb steak had a garnish of fried potatoes and cabbage. In the middle of the table rested a plate packed with chicken pilla. And finally, at the side, I spotted the salt-grilled char we received earlier today. I was going for a somewhat Spanish dinner tonight. Nane pulled my chair back, gesturing for me to sit down. At my side of the table, there were silver tableware and a neatly folded napkin, adorned with a checked pattern just like yesterday. Did you make everything? Nah, I just grilled the fish and made the paella. The rest was done by my auntie. Noticing the bottles of white and red wine on the table, Nane picked them up in both hands. I told her I didn't need a whole bottle for myself. I spotted two other glasses at the other end of the table, one near the window and the other near the corridor. I wonder if that's for the person I saw at the counter in the library. Yep, that's her. Nane checked the labels on each bottle of wine, then lifted both bottles. Which would you prefer? The white wine was in her right hand, the red in her left. We have some sparkling wine too, if that's what you like. I wasn't too particular about wine, so I ended up picking red on a whim. Nane nodded and placed the bottle of white wine on the table. I grabbed one of the mini breads and broke it up into 2 pieces. It was still warm inside. I placed a slice of ham on it and put it in my mouth. Did your aunt say anything? Just to tell you hi. I see. I placed a new slice of ham on the other piece before popping it into my mouth. That bread is good, isn't it? I nodded with my mouth full. We import the dough directly from Spain. It has a very fragrant smell. Auntie used to live in Spain for a while. Sometimes she gets all nostalgic about those days, and that's when I get treated to some delicious bread and ham. I see. It's time to take my be real. Very important. There we go. The char is going to be delicious too. The grilled fish rested on a Japanese-style plate. Ingredients straight from the farm. I almost feel like I'm at some sort of fair. It beats the stuff over at the department store, that's for sure. Hane sounded a laugh. I picked up my chopsticks and took a piece from the fish's stomach area. The tender yet crispy piece melted in my mouth. It's good. Let me check. Nane took a piece of the white flesh for herself and put it into her mouth. She slowly chewed it for a few seconds before gulping it down. Hot as hell, but pretty nicely done otherwise. Do you happen to have a sensitive tongue? I wouldn't go that far. Nane let out another laugh. Her smile seemed a little wooden. I've got to make sure they know I'm grateful for the gift. Yeah, I'll thank the kids next time I run into them. I saw something interesting too. Or, you're actually a closet sadist, aren't you, Sachiko? I'd like to thank your aunt for the delicious meal. Oh, she'd definitely love that. But I think she's already gone to bed, so maybe do it some other day. Keep wandering around the place and you'll eventually run into her, I'm sure. Don't worry about that, Dim. We all have our responsibilities in real life. Such as it is. That's a cute night robe. I crumpled down into the chair, heaving a tired breath. A woman with long dark hair gazed back at me from the mirror with jet black eyes. Her cheeks were flushed red, her eyelids heavy from drowsiness. The woman's dark flowing locks fell onto the white towel resting on her shoulders. Maybe I should cut it shorter. The night breeze lightly stirred the curtains, sending a drop of water from my hair to my exposed thigh. I reached out to pick up a comb. After lightly dipping the comb in water with a few drops of flower oil added to it, I began combing my hair. Flower oil, is that a thing? For hair? A chilly breeze kept blowing inside through the open window. I could hear a knocking sound in the distance. Takako had a habit of curling my hair around her finger to smell it. It was a motion similar to kissing the hand of a princess. Both the tortoiseshell comb and this camellia oil were presents from her. She might have disappeared, but parts of her seemed to remain with me. The woman in the mirror made a puzzled expression. Look at that face. I turned off the hairdryer and placed it on the dresser. I stood up, took my pajamas out of the carrier bag, and got dressed. After circling around the bed and opening the cabinet, I found a light pink insect repellent tape in an otherwise empty drawer. Once I emptied the contents of my carrier bag onto the bed, I folded up my spare clothes and stuffed them into the closet. As for my toiletries, I left them on the nightstand and in the bathroom. I returned the lighter carrier bag to the ground and, with nothing else to do, sat down on the bed. The knocking sound I heard earlier did not melt into the night sky. Instead, it seemed to have been reverberating in a narrow space. I looked at the window to see curtains folded calmly beside it. The pale moon hung motionless in the dark sky. I turned the knob adorned with a chrysanthemum carving and stepped outside. The branches of the oak tree cast dark, twisting patterns on the floor through the window. To my right, I spotted a girl that resembled Takako descending the stairs. I began following her, eventually breaking into a dash. Even knowing my loud footsteps could wake someone, I still wouldn't stop. I only halted up after circling down the spiral stairs that led to the lobby. Upon quickly surveying the area, I realized there was no one else around. Out of nowhere, I could have sworn I heard the front door close. I hurried to the door, turned the knob, and stepped outside. The lack of streetlights made it difficult to see. Oh, hello there, Sachiko. Startled, I turned toward the sound of the abrupt voice and saw a person's silhouette emerge from the darkness. Oh! It was Narasaki! Hello! What are you doing here? The corners of her lips curled up as she drew closer to the light. You ran all the way here just to greet me? I'm flattered. Narasaki? I looked her over from head to feet. Seriously though, what are you doing here just like that? I was just... What about you? Why are you here? I came for a vacation, much like you. I was actually thinking of going up to your room right about now, so your timing was impeccable. If you're not busy, can I come over for a bit? Sure. In that case, let's hurry on. I'm kind of freezing out here. Narasaki made a brief smile and entered the mansion ahead of me. It's a little too convenient to be a vacation. I wonder if she's checking up on her. Narasaki removed her coat and scarf as we entered my room. She placed them on the chair in front of the mirror. Then, as though having suddenly remembered something, she walked back to her coat and pulled a small box out of one of its pockets. She handed it to me. I brought you something. It was a tiny white cardboard box that easily fit into my palm. I undid the cover to find two little bears inside, both with ribbons around them. It's a very cute present. One bear was white, wearing a frilly one-piece dress, while the other was brown and dressed in an apron. Pretty nice craftsmanship there, huh? They have clips on their backs and magnets on the inside. You can basically use them to attach pieces of paper to a whiteboard. So they're not just for decoration. After looking at the bear some more, I closed the lid. Thank you. I'll make sure to put them to good use in my office. How far are you into this game? I wish this would tell me. Actually, wait, I can figure that out right now, huh? Nope, it doesn't tell me how long I've been playing. I feel like I'm about... 2 times 5 is 10. I'm probably about 10 hours into this game, somewhere around that. I'm glad you like it. You're actually quite fond of things like this, right? I am, though I don't really buy them myself. Thought so. Narasaki made a satisfied smile. I placed the box on the side table next to the bed. Are you thirsty? Yeah. Do you have some hot coffee in here? Only if you're fine with instant. I'll take what I can get. I added coffee powder to the cup and filled it with boiling water. I returned carrying 2 cups of steaming coffee, one for each of us. Thanks. I handed 1 cup to Narasaki and sat down on the side of the bed. The bed creaked under my weight. I really should have come by train as well. It scraped the bottom of my car driving through these mountain roads. I'm sure they sure weren't built with modern cars in mind, let me tell you. You came by car? Yep, I just got back from parking it at the place that lady told me about. Isn't this place, quite far from your clinic? That isn't too far. Well, for a visual novel, yeah, it's not that far. Yeah, the trip took about 5 hours, I think. A portion of which I must have wasted getting lost on these damn roads. Considering most of them aren't even on maps, they were a total pain to navigate. The train brought me straight to the foot of this mountain. Well, it's been ages since I've driven my car, and nothing beats blasting loud music with your windows open as you speed through the highway. After drinking half her coffee in a single gulp, Narasaki once again leveled her gaze with mine. Did I surprise you? Yes. It's been a while since I could take a vacation, Originally, I planned to spend it in Hawaii or Guam, but I couldn't get this place off my mind, so... After finishing the rest of her coffee with a second gulp, she placed the empty cup on the dresser. Well, yeah, it does depend on the novel. I have played visual novels on this channel that I have completely played through at least one ending in a single hour. And then there's stuff like If My Heart Had Wings, which if you were to fully complete every path, it would take like 80 hours. And then there's some novel that a friend of me told me about that literally has 1.5 million words, which would take literally like 150 to 200 hours to finish, even just a single path, so... It depends on the visual novel. This one's a bit on the shorter side overall, but, you know, 6 streams in and we're probably not even halfway done, so... Thank you. You're welcome. Nagasaki waved her hand like it was no big deal. She then glanced toward the window, stood up, and walked closer to it. I've almost forgotten how much better you could see the stars out here in the country. Joining her thumb and index fingers to form a pair of binoculars, Nagasaki examined the sky. Like this. How did you spend your time since coming here? I've just been relaxing. How do you feel? Pretty well. That's good to hear. I think this place is somewhat similar to my childhood home. I've been remembering the past lately. Yeah, that place was out in the countryside too. That is also true, Dim. I'm trying to do 2-hour streams now instead of 1.5 hours. Give my bosses more bang for their buck. I took a walk in the woods today. It's been a while since I've set foot on real soil. That's what you get for living in a so-called concrete jungle, I suppose. I almost felt as though I was transported into a different world. Funny thing is, it's exactly this kind of stuff that used to be more familiar to me. Yeah, I remember the 3 of us spending a lot of time playing by the river. Nagasaki gently narrowed her eyes. I wasn't too into it, though. Well, I guess it was usually Takako who wanted to go on adventures. She was the one who'd always slip and fall into the river or into a hole dug for sweet potatoes, or stumble on some random tree roots and fall face first to the ground. I remember how we always had to explain to our parents what happened. One time we even had to carry her to the hospital. Nagasaki covered her mouth with one hand, unable to contain a chuckle. Her shoulders trembled for a few moments as she giggled. She soon continued. You jumped through that door like you were being chased. Did you see something again? Why do you think that? Well, where I'm from, it's not exactly normal to rush out of your house in the middle of the night. I suppose you have a point. I tried to come up with an excuse but couldn't think of anything. I saw Takako in the corridor earlier. And chased her outside? Something like that. Was it the first time you saw her around here? Yes, but I also saw her just before leaving. I told her about that episode with Takako in the bath. After giving a detailed explanation about everything I did that evening, I briefly summarized my conversation with the hallucination. Nagasaki asked a few questions, and I answered. She was curious if there was anything, a physical object, that could have worked as a trigger to remind me of Takako. I'm also noticing that Sachi only sees Takako when Nagasaki is close. Is that a coincidence? I wonder. After thinking for a while, I told her that the rubber duck might have been it. Nagasaki agreed. I decided not to tell her I had somehow booked this place for my vacation without my own knowledge. After all, I might have simply forgotten it because of work, and it didn't seem directly related to Takako's situation. Nagasaki let out a long hum as I finished my explanation. When I last visited your clinic, you said you wanted to observe my progress for a while before going anywhere further. I asked her if we should start thinking about alternate treatment methods if my symptoms failed to subside, but she shook her head. Maybe this isn't something that just goes away overnight because you regained your memories. I think we should observe it for a while longer. Nagasaki took a tired expression and stretched her arms, most likely exhausted from the long trip. I looked away and tried to remember Takako from earlier today. And I thought about the Takako I saw in the bath. Nagasaki said there might be some physical object that made me see hallucinations of her. In that earlier case, it was most likely the rubber ducky in the bath. But I'd never been to this inn before, at least not with Takako. Can the whole town function as a trigger? Maybe I saw her again because this place reminds me of our old home. It's possible, or maybe it's something you brought with yourself. I thought about my luggage for a moment, but I was pretty sure I didn't bring anything that used to belong to Takako. I gave up on continuing along that train of thought. What about the comb and the flower oil for your hair? I came all this way, but I suppose things aren't going to be that easy. I've said this before, but people don't just get better overnight. The important part now is that you're physically healthy. By the way, you said you were curious about something when we last met. What was it? Before she could pry further, I reminded Nagasaki of what she said the last time I visited the clinic. Nagasaki pointed at the clock next to the dresser. That aside, don't you think it's gotten a little late? Shouldn't you go to bed? I should, but then Takako came along and now you're here. It'll be a while before I start feeling sleepy again. Nagasaki's lips curled into a smile. She then made a resigned expression. She placed her right hand on her chin like a detective from an old movie. After seeing that, I glanced at the clock again and changed my mind. Well, maybe it's okay. I don't feel like I could properly think about it even if you told me right now. Nagasaki placed her hand on the table. Good. I'll be here tomorrow as well. We could talk about it anytime. There's no need to rush. I glanced at the sky, finding its color somewhat peculiar. It seemed as though someone had spilled green and yellow dye onto an indigo canvas laden with stars. Only the round silver moon hung clear in the corner of the sky. I realized that Nagasaki was looking at me through her finger binoculars. What? Tell me what can be seen from here. I gave her an apprehensive look, but she said it was just a little psychological test. Me? Looked as though Nagasaki momentarily furrowed her brows. It was such a slight movement, I might have imagined it, though. I didn't tell you whose field of view I was talking about, but you picked mine. Seems as though you're the kind of person that puts others above herself. Thank you. I found it pretty simplistic for a test coming from a professional. Then again, maybe it lacked some punch precisely because it was meant for serious matters, not to be used as a party trick or as a piece of trivia in some variety show. Got the voices swapped. Got it. I miss when visual novels will tell you who's talking. It's such a small thing that helps. Doesn't matter if you're reading, but if you're, streaming. Anyway. By the way, did you meet that person you met in Italy? Nane? Yes. Our conversation seemed to stop there. Realizing I was holding an empty coffee cup, I placed it on my side table. Well, not to mention you just drank coffee. Good luck sleeping after that. I went on a walk with her. We picked flowers and watched some children fish along the way. That must have been fun. Yes, Nane smiled a lot. I'm sure she enjoyed it. I was talking about you. My lips curled up slightly as I recalled today's walk. That's right. Nande kind of reminded me of Takako a little, especially when I saw her talking to the children. Oh? I hope I can meet her too. As we finished discussing Nane, Nagasaki told me it was about time for her to go. She glanced at the cup in her hands. There was still some coffee left in it. Listen, you don't need to rush your treatment. You need to slowly and meticulously unravel one entangled thread after another. Pulling on them will force only make things worse. When there's a sudden and huge change in one's mental landscape, a reaction always follows, and it's rarely good for one's health. When you put a wild fish in an aquarium, they don't adjust well initially, right? It's also common to become sick after a strenuous diet. The Industrial Revolution caused countless problems for the environment, as well as peace and order in general. The sudden growth of capitalism can lead to financial and industrial capital merging, giving birth to monopoly capitalism. The scale of the example was so out there, I only ended up feeling confused. Exactly. Anyway, you've already fixed your memory problems the other night. That's what counts the most right now. You don't need to rush with trying to get rid of the hallucinations. And the ringing in my ears. Right, that too. Nagasaki gave a gentle look, seemingly trying to assure me that everything was fine. She tended to make this kind of face from time to time. It would always make me relax. I calmed down a little. Somewhere in my mind, I was hoping not to see any hallucinations here, so encountering Takako tonight must have upset me all the more as a result. I'm really glad you came. Hearing you say that already made the trip worth it. Nagasaki finished her coffee, picked up her scarf, and left. After putting the cups away, I lay down on the bed. Turning my head to the side, I saw the night sky through the window. The moon shone brightly in the darkness, illuminating the tree leaves and the ornamental sheep figure near the window with its silvery light. As I closed my eyes, I felt like I was drifting along on the surface of the sea. The fresh, salty air coming in from the open window must have been the cause of it. The furniture floated in the water. Before I knew it, my consciousness melted away and I found myself in a dream of the past. I could hear the flow of a river beside me. It was sometimes interrupted by the rocks in its stream knocking together. The sky turns orange as the sun goes down. Takako, walking a few steps in front of me on our way back from the rental store, was singing a tune. It wasn't exactly orange. It was more like that time during dusk when you could barely make out the faces of people walking other side of the street. Let's go home together with the crows. I think you're forgetting the lyrics. Huh? It was an old song, long since banished to the cobwebbed corners of our minds. I was pretty sure I hadn't heard her sing it since kindergarten. She made another attempt. Let's go home together with the crows. It's still the same. Huh? She started mumbling again. Listening to her humming, I tried recalling how she used to sing that song. Takako kept shaking her shoulders in tune with the song, her ponytail dancing with every motion. The bells at the mountain temple ring. Let's go home with our hands joined together. Let's go home along with the crows. Let's go home along with the crows. Takako turned to me and smiled. Yeah, that's how it went. Walking ahead of me, she began her song again. I tried to join her in a small voice, as embarrassing as it was. The sky turns orange as the sun goes down. The bells at the mountain temple ring. Let's go home with our hands joined together. Let's go home along with the crows. I was glad it was actually dusk. dusk, the time when it was too dark to see anyone's face. It was the time of day when one had to question who anyone was. That was a cute little memory. I slipped into the clothes I prepared for myself last night and left the room. Sunlight filtered in through the east-facing windows on the corridor. The window frames and the branches of the oak tree both cast a shadow on the red carpet. Good morning! Upon entering the door to the cafeteria, I noticed Nane standing behind the counter. She looked at me over my shoulder, her tied-up hair drifting across the air in sync with the motions of her head. Morning. You want something to eat? Some bread and coffee, if possible. Roger that! I picked out the seat closest to direct sunlight. It was warm to the touch. Though I had already heard them back when I was combing my hair in my room, the sound of chirping birds outside was even louder here. I glanced out the window and saw a group of Japanese wide-eyes assembling around a puddle of water, surrounded by fallen leaves that had accumulated below one of the oak's branches. Another bird jumped down from a taller branch and straight into the water. As I observed its little wings splashing around in a puddle, the fragrance of coffee reached my nose. You're not used to seeing wide-eyes? Nane placed a cup of coffee in front of me. It had a black exterior and a yellow interior. For a short while, I observed the little white bubbles along the black surface accumulating near the edge of the cup. Thank you. I'd often see them up in the trees back when I still lived in the countryside, but they're a rarer sight where I live now. Seeing them here made me a little nostalgic. Well, they show up quite frequently around here. Nane sat down in front of me and picked up her cup, a streak of steam rising from the hot liquid. I could see her smile beyond that misty veil. She appeared excited. Hello again, Dim. You seem in good spirits. Did something happen? I trailed my finger along the corner of my lips. Here we go. Yeah, I learned how to make some extra special coffee from a cafe in town, and it turned out really well today. Is it drip coffee? Yeah, it's a special way that minimizes the brewing time, too. Nane drew her cup to her upper lip and after savoring the smell for a while, took a sip. Yeah, it's pretty good if I do say so myself. I'd say mine can pretty much give that cafe a run for its money at this point. Nane took another sip, letting the corner of her lips curl up again. I grabbed my own cup, enjoying its warmth. The actual taste was a bit more bitter than what I usually preferred in coffee, but it was still pretty good. Oh, people are here, Dim. They're just, they're lurking. We have a lot of people who come into the streams just to watch, but not actually chat. You have to do the dripping at calculated intervals to make it strong. Like this! She began twisting her right wrist in the air. Meanwhile, she pushed the plate with little bottles of sugar and cream closer to me with her left hand. I picked up the cream bottle and added some to my coffee, making a white marble-like pattern appear on the surface of the liquid. I stuck my spoon into it and stirred it until it disappeared. Well, yeah, Dim, but trust me, people come in and go. And, of course, people watch on YouTube after the fact. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube. I know you're there. As I observed Nane's gestures, I spotted the girl from yesterday passing through the stone-laden path beyond the window. She had appeared from the east side of the building and soon disappeared beyond the west. What are you looking at over there? Nane turned her head around to look at the garden. I was just spacing out. Nane turned back to me and, slightly leaning her head forward, took another sip from her coffee. I watched her twin tails flutter around her shoulders. She really reminds me of Takako. She looked upward, her gaze meeting mine. Does it look weird? She traced a hand along her hair. No, I think it suits you. You like twin tails? I could keep it like this tomorrow as well if you want. Someone I know used to wear her hair like that. Oh, I see. You looked really similar to her from behind, so I got startled a bit. She finished the contents of her cup and placed it on the saucer with a barely audible clang. Nane stared into the bottom of her cup for a few moments before finally looking up at me. Is something wrong? She must have been important to you. As I gave her a puzzled look, Nane explained that she never really thought too deeply about individual hairstyles, nor did she associate them with specific people. I see. I tried. The sound of clanging dishes dominated the room. Nane hummed a song as she washed the dishes behind the counter. I asked if I could help, and was refused. With nothing to do but listen to the monotone sounds of my seat, I felt drowsiness overcome me. I shifted my gaze to the pictures on the wall. One of them showed Nane's aunt smiling under an oak tree. Another had a girl struggling with a bucket handle on the well. In the third, there was a group of men wearing work uniforms in front of a massive, modern-looking mansion. My eyes paused on that picture. The entrance to that mansion looked awfully familiar. Oh, this? Nane, who seemed to have returned while I was busy inspecting the pictures, pointed at the one I'd been looking at. That's an old photograph of this place, she remarked as she sat down in her seat. I turned toward her. There was a streak of sunlight right where she sat down, making Nane narrow her eyes. The weather's nice today. Oh, right. Tell me if you decide to take a nap. I'll change the sheets in your room. Thank you, but I'm not planning to, so feel free to change them whenever you want. There seem to be a lot of people in that picture. What's the story behind it? I returned my gaze to the photographs on the wall. Oh, it's a group picture of all employees from when this place was opened. Apparently, the original plan was to take a picture of the mansion after they restored it, but photographs were rare in those times, so everyone came to see how it all worked, and they eventually ended up taking a group picture. This is me, by the way. Nane pointed at a beautiful woman in a kimono sitting on a stool. The baby in her arms was looking straight at us. Nane sounded a laugh when I told her she looked cute. Well, all children are. It's okay. I can still see the resemblance. Thanks. I'll take that as a compliment. She made a mischievous smile. I returned my eyes to the picture. That's your mother holding you, right? Yep. We all look alike, don't we? To tell the truth, the current Nane looked more like that woman in the kimono than the baby in her arms. Still, despite the resemblance in their features, there was a completely different air about them. The kimono-clad woman had an expressionless face, reminding me more of a doll than a human being. It felt as though she was gazing into empty space rather than the camera. Everyone else in the picture was flashing broad smiles, making her somewhat gloomy demeanor stand out quite a bit. What are you looking at? Nane's voice jerked me back to reality. Everyone looks pretty happy in this picture. Nane directed her gaze to the photograph. Yeah, I think the economy was on the rise back then, so that could be the reason. When you start thinking like that, is it a sign of age? She made a bitter face. Oh, come on, you still look young. Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. A smile returned to Nane's face. The woman holding a baby in her arms looked as though she looked at us through narrowed eyes. Everyone around her looked like they were having the time of their lives. Even without colors, I could tell the picture was taken on a sunny afternoon. They probably broke into lively chatter as soon as the photo session was over. It's a good picture. My eyes stopped on a woman wearing a cook's outfit. She looks like the person I saw in the library. Yeah, that's my auntie. She works here now. You've got quite the keen eye. I could see the resemblance, though in this picture she was still a young woman. She wore a light-colored apron with frills over a dark undershirt. Was she a cook? Yes, she was our chef, in fact. And you already know how darn good she is. She spent a long time training overseas in her younger days, from Spain to Italy and China. Just give her the ingredients and she'll fix you anything. Here, look at those pictures. Further down, there were a couple of pictures obviously taken overseas. An even younger version of Nane's aunt was standing near a western-looking storefront. The place's metal signboard sported a relief in the shape of a fish, as well as the phrase "Lost Gas" spelled on it. The whole thing had a very restaurant-like feel to it. In another picture, she was eating something that looked like a kiwi in front of a pair of massive castle gates. That's impressive. But then why did she come back? My mother recruited her when she founded this inn. They were childhood friends as far as I know. I see. Owning a mansion and running it as an inn was an old dream of theirs. My mother saved up the money while my auntie perfected her cooking skills. When I was little, she talked my ears off about how many challenges and hurdles she had to overcome. They must have been good memories. Yeah, I can tell. She always smiles while talking about the past, even though I've already heard her stories a million times over. Nane gazed into the distance, her mind seemingly returning to the past. Are there no pictures of you? There should be one from when I was still a kid. Nane looked around, searching for the picture in question. Ah, here it is! The photo showed a young Nane with her hair cut short, standing atop the oversized root of some large tree. She was holding an insect net high above her head while carrying a basket filled with all the critters she'd caught. You seem to have grown up into quite an energetic child. It's pretty embarrassing now that I look at it. You like insects? I might have, in the past. I liked how drone beetles sparkled in the sun and found the wings of butterflies really pretty. I was reading Fabre's Souvenirs Entomologiques, whatever that is, at the time, which only added more fuel to the fire. To be honest, I liked all animals, from birds to fish. Well, you know how kids are. They tend to be fascinated by anything that moves. I never liked insects that much. What did you play with when you were a child? Dolls? Alone? At first, yeah. I might have ventured outside more had I been living at a nice place like this. The young Nane was surrounded by trees, bushes, and all sorts of other greenery, almost like she was in the middle of some uncharted, untamed forest. Near the ancient moss-covered trees coiled roots thick enough to be mistaken for trees themselves, forming a natural maze worthy of exploring. Each layer of the mountainous terrain, resembling a naturally formed falling water house, was filled to the brim with crystal clear water. Oh, that's right. There are hot springs near this place. Want to check them out one of these days? Sounds like a good idea. It's a promise, then. Nane, leaning against the table with her elbow, stuck out her pinky toward me. That brings back memories. I lifted my hand from my knees, entwining my pinky with hers. If I break this promise, I will swallow 1,000 needles. If I break this promise, I will swallow 1,000 needles. And our fingers are cut. And our promise is sealed. Huh? Huh? At the same time, the clock from the lobby began chiming the hour. Oh, I didn't realize it was so late. You have work to do? Yeah. You planning to be here for a while? I don't really have any plans. I guess I could stay here for now. I see. Feel free to take anything that's behind the counter if you ever get thirsty. Thanks. Good luck with work. Nane gave me a small nod and left the room. And our promise is sealed. And I'm going to slice off my hand. Two completely different ways to make a promise, don't you think? That's funny. A gust of wind found its way into the room, making Narasaki's hair flutter as she stared down at the chessboard. The afternoon sky was colored in a pale grayish hue. I could see dense clouds drifting our way from beyond the mountains. It's gotten pretty cold. Can I close the window? Go ahead. Go ahead. Narasaki answered without looking away from the board, keeping her palm on her chin. The final breeze that snuck inside as I was closing the window made a high-pitched flute-like sound due to its passage of entry getting narrower, but ceased the moment I finished. What a ridiculously accurate description of what happens when you close a window. Wow, that's incredibly descriptive and very accurate. I latched the window and returned to the table to meet Narasaki's gaze. It's your turn, she declared. I reached out to the queen and took her pawn without sitting down. The board let out a pleasant clang as I placed my piece on its surface. I sat down, crossed my legs, and once again picked up the book I'd been reading. Okay, Sachi's good at chess, I get it. The board and the pieces Narasaki brought with her were smaller than usual and were made of glass. The two opposing sides, rather than being black and white, were crafted from transparent and opaque glass. Narasaki's hand stopped midway to her knight. She then reached out toward one of her pawns, yet once again her hand stopped and returned to her chin instead. A black kite outside let out an ear-piercing cry. I think you could have done some serious damage with that first move. Yeah, but I don't think it would have been enough to break through your wall. If you go this way, my lineup will get to the point faster. If you attack, though, you could take my rook from the front. I tilted my book slightly to see the board. Another cry of the kite reverberated across the mountain range outside. I glanced at the gray sky, but saw no birds from this angle. I wonder if it's going to rain today. Then maybe I should do this. The radio said the latter half of today would be cloudy with weak rain. Narasaki's knight moved forward, taking out my pawn. Did you notice any changes in your mood after coming here? Not really. You're not feeling anxious or ill for no apparent reason? I feel pretty calm. Are you asking me because it's going to rain? It's not related to the weather, just... The battle on our board was proceeding just as we had foreseen. I heard the cry of a bird again, but this time it sounded closer. Raising my face, I saw a blue bird on the windowsill outside. You sure hear birds a lot in this place. You seem to pass through the area often while migrating during winter. The mountain here is full of evergreen trees, which must attract them. Migratory birds? It's hard to believe something that small can actually cross the sea. I've heard they can put half their brain to sleep as they close one of their eyes. This allows them to keep flying for long periods of time without rest. Really? Narasaki moved one of her pieces and considered the bird beyond the window with curious eyes. The little thing let out a cry and jumped around on its thin legs a few times. Hearing Narasaki move a piece again, I shifted my gaze back to the board. Although at the cost of a few pieces, she managed to prevent her king from being surrounded and was now gearing up for a new attack. I began reaching out toward one of the pieces I failed to execute in time, but stopped. I realized that if I took it, I'd be opening a way for Narasaki's queen to get inside the back of my formation. Narasaki raised one of her eyebrows in an obviously exaggerated way. You made it look like you aren't thinking anything, but you're actually conniving and laying traps all over the board. That's so like you. Voices. Not at all. It was just a coincidence. I realized that Narasaki was gazing out the window, so we spent a short while watching the little bird together. Its round, almost ball-like frame made it obvious that the bird had not been lacking its nutrition as of late. It kept fluttering its wings with much vigor. It would let out a chirp or two once in a while. Would you say it's chirping or just crying? I'd say somewhere in between. Nagasaki tried imitating the bird's voice. I spent a few moments comparing her attempt to the actual bird. By the way, how many days did you take off again? About 10. I'm planning to spend a week or so here. I see. What about you? It's about the same. Nagasaki pulled out a schedule notebook from the pocket of the coat dangling on a nearby chair and took a few seconds looking it over before answering me. I see you brought that with you. Oh, this thing? Nagasaki gestured toward me with a notebook in hand. No, the one that's peeking out from your pocket. I pointed at another notebook in her coat. It was the same one she used to jot down things during my examinations. Oh, I thought it might come in handy. It was my turn to make a move, but instead of touching my piece, I asked Nagasaki what I couldn't yesterday. We have time today, so why don't you tell me about what's been bothering you about my condition? Nagasaki shrugged her shoulders. It's nothing overly serious, really. I was just thinking about your symptoms a little. Thinking? What do you mean? Remember how I said they weren't interfering with your life? Yes, I'm hallucinating without letting anyone else know. That's right. I was just thinking about exactly what kind of hallucinations you were seeing. The Takako you see in your mind participates in conversations with the people in your office and does her job without fail, right? And it all felt natural to the extent you didn't realize that something was off. I just got curious about how it must look to you. It seems almost like another reality exists within you. Nagasaki paused to catch her breath after that long speech. I'm not sure how to answer that. Well, I've no idea exactly what you're seeing, but I think we've had this discussion before. I'm more interested in how you process the conversations between Takako and your other colleagues. Understanding that might help shed more light on your exact position. My position? Yeah. For example, Nagasaki placed her schedule notebook on the chessboard and began drawing some sort of graph. Not real, real. She pointed at the circle around the words not real and said that it existed only inside my head. That's the world where you thought Takako was still around. And reality is the world where you have remembered that she's not. I made a slight nod as I looked at the graph. Nagasaki's pen pointed at the not real bit again. You lived in this one for at least 2 years, and in order to avoid contradictions, you've changed the dates of your trip as well as that of Takako's disappearance. And your current position is probably somewhere around here. Nagasaki pointed at the tunnel-like sign between the two bubbles. The side closer to reality, to be precise. You fixed your memories and are on your way to return here, but you haven't done so completely. Not yet. You still keep seeing little snippets of your surreal world when something triggers it. That's how I interpret your condition, at least. And those triggers are things that remind me of Takako, correct? I would say so. The best way to get over this is to spend enough time in an alien land until you're completely back in reality. I realized I could no longer hear the chirping of that little bird. I glanced at the window. The bird had already flown away. Nagasaki was watching the empty window too. By the way, did you plan anything specific for this trip? Not really. Good. With no plans, you can relax without thinking too much. Of course, you can always use your brain when you feel like it. Watching from a distance can help you notice new things in your life. At this time of the day, I would usually be in my office working. I blinked and considered the chess pieces on the table. But now I was playing a game with Nagasaki in a place I'd never been before. She was certainly right. I felt more relaxed here compared to when I'd visited her at the clinic during work. I had a pretty rigid schedule near the end of the year. We received tons of orders last year, so the office was basically on fire during those final days. Now that I thought about it, I might have taken on too many jobs because I calculated Takako as being part of the workforce. I wondered if I'd unknowingly done something bad to my two colleagues. On top of that, since I realized I was seeing things that couldn't have been real, I ended up skipping work and going to Narasaki's clinic instead. It was only then that I started realizing I'd actually been hallucinating for years. That said, I managed to both finish all my duties by the end of the year and fix up some of the broken memories at Narasaki's clinic. In my mind's eye, it felt like it all happened in seconds. I stifled a sigh, to which Narasaki reacted with a small nod. Honestly, it was pretty incredible how I kept the charade up for over 2 years without anyone putting me in a hospital. With that mystery cleared up, I shifted my thoughts to what I was supposed to do now. So, you're saying the symptoms will eventually go away on their own? That's what I believe at any rate. And you also believe I had a specific reason and some sort of goal in mind for conjuring up an alternate reality in my head? Is that correct? Well, that about sums it up, yes. The corners of Narasaki's lips curled up. I see your mind's back to being in full throttle. Thank you. That said, you should leave the complicated stuff to me, and instead focus on relaxing. Treating you is my job, and if I find something new, I'll inform you right away. Are you okay with that? Yes. Anyway, I'll avoid speaking about this unless something new comes up. Meanwhile, you should concentrate on enjoying your vacation. As you say, Doctor. Narasaki chuckled. It's the first time you've called me that. Do you like it, Doctor? Narasaki crossed her legs again and said it wasn't too bad. After that, we resumed our game and continued playing until we got bored. Saying she wanted to look around the area, Narasaki got up and left my room. Back at the library. Oh, hey, this is from Narasaki's point of view. This is different. As I looked up at the oculus window in the center of the library, the wintry sky beyond it was completely dark, despite it still being evening. Do I know how to play chess myself? Yes, I do know how to play. I'm just very bad at it, but I do know the rules, yes. The lights on the library walls lit up, banishing the shadows to a small area in the middle of the room and the corners of the ceiling. Everything around me was now illuminated in warm colors. A young girl sat at the desk, located deeper into the room, reading a book. Holding the sizable book with both hands on its sides, the girl had it placed vertically on the desk before her, essentially preventing me from seeing her face. I continued walking by the bookshelves, my heels clicking against the wooden floor. The book had the girl's complete and undivided attention, even when I approached her. Hello? Her small shoulders jerked up a bit as I addressed her from behind. She turned her head around, her pale eyes glaring at me from below. Won't your parents be late if you stay out this late? She regarded me with indignant eyes. I could see the light of distrust in her eyes, much too intense for her age. However, that light soon vanished, and she returned her gaze to the book. Well now. The girl's desk was littered with various other books and notebooks. The girl closed the book and reached out toward the other end of the table, her ponytail dancing in the air behind her. Pulling one of the notebooks to herself, she opened it and began scribbling something diagonally, completely ignoring the ruled lines. I glanced at the other nearby notebook that was open and saw the bird's eye schematic of some building. Can I take a look? The girl, still in the middle of writing, gave a cursory glance and responded with a brief nod. I picked up one of the notebooks and began flipping through its pages. They were the plans of the inn next door, with each page detailing not only its general measurements, but the furniture and various other little things as well. I see you spent a decent amount of time on this. Upon closer inspection, I realized that the other books on the desk were all related to the history of the mansion. There were a number of old informational pamphlets and newspaper clippings scattered around as well. Are you doing this for a school project or something? I don't think I've ever seen anyone go this far for a simple homework assignment, though.
It's just a hobby.
Oh? That's one peculiar hobby in this day and age. In lieu of a reply, I heard only the shuffling of paper and the sounds of scribbling. Looking up at the ceiling, I spotted a star beyond the oculus window. I realized the scribbling had stopped. Do you live close by?
Who are you? Why do you keep talking to me?
Irritated, the girl closed the scrapbook she'd been looking at and reached out to one of the pamphlets. I'm nobody special, but it's only natural for adults to be worried about children.
Is that so?
She kept turning the pages, but her pen remained still. I turned the page of the notebook I myself was holding. Oh, I think the layout of that room has changed a bit. I placed the notebook on the desk and pointed at the guest room on the second floor.
How do you know?
That's the room I'm staying at. The girl gave me a suspicious look over her shoulder. The light from the lamps inside intensified as it began to grow even darker outside, illuminating her face. No writing on that piece of paper now, so... Her somewhat big, slanted eyes sparkled black in the artificial light, revealing more about her thoughts than her soft-spoken demeanor. Her nose looked a bit too refined for someone of Asian descent. Her lips, pink like flower petals, formed a line in a gesture of rejection. She sat with her back straight against the backrest of a chair that was slightly too big for her. There was a certain sense of sophistication to the way she moved. The girl looked me up and down, her deep eyes eventually settling on my face. The sun's already down. Have you contacted your family about being late?
Is that all you came here for?
Said the girl, narrowing her eyes. Her gesture resembled my friend's. I'm looking for a lost item. Have you seen a silver bookmark anywhere? It has a clover-shaped cutout at the top. The girl turned a few pages of her scrapbook and handed me the bookmark that was there.
I found it on the desk closest to the window. I thought it could come in handy, so I put it in my book.
Thanks. My friend accidentally left it in there, you see. Being made of metal, the bookmark had some weight to it. The borders were decorated with an ivy pattern, while the top part sported a carving of a 4-leaf clover. The orange light of the room was reflected on its surface as I tilted it. By the way, about your research, have you already talked to the person who's usually at the counter here during the day? The girl picked up another pamphlet and began reading it. She's the caretaker of the inn you're investigating. She's been working here for quite a while, so I imagine you could tell her she could tell you a lot of things you wouldn't find written down. The girl remained silent and turned back to her scrapbook. I can ask her if you want.
In exchange for going home today? Or, I can ask her if you want.
In exchange for going home for today?
I like that idea.
The girl closed her notebook.
I'll be going then.
What's the significance of this girl? And why did we see that from Narasaki's point of view instead of from Sachi's? Good morning, Sachiko. The weather sure is nice today, isn't it? Why don't we do it here now, seeing how it's warm? I pressed my fingers against my temples. They still ached from all that alcohol. I was still sitting on my bed in my pajamas when Narasaki entered the room and passed by me. She parted the curtains, making the light reach the tip of my toes. I glanced at the window and saw her moving the table with the chessboard on it to a spot with better sunlight. After that, she pulled up a chair and sat down in front of the table. You promised to help me kill time until Ms. Nane's aunt drops by the library.
I did? I don't remember.
Well, I do.
Where's all your energy come from?
Well then, let's see. Do you remember where we left off?
Not really. Was I supposed to write it down?
I was just checking.
I'll go get changed.
After pushing aside the sheet covering my legs, I climbed out of bed. From behind, I heard the glassy sound of the chess pieces being moved. I remembered how Nagasaki sacrificed her knight to open an attack on my left side at the beginning of the match. We returned to a stalemate as soon as I fended it off, though. I see you finally woken up.
Did you come to my room this early on purpose?
The corners of Nagasaki's lips curled upward. It was worth a try.
I suppose.
Anyway, I wouldn't have guessed you were so good at chess.
I'm not that good.
You seem quite used to the game, though.
Takako was really obsessed with it at one point. She pretty much forced me to play with her all the time.
Was she better than you?
At first I kept losing, but I'd say we were about equal by the time we quit.
Oh? Why did you quit?
Takako got bored of it.
I see. Nagasaki smiled. If you two were about equal, that means winning this would make me the best.
I wonder about that.
What do you mean? Nagasaki asked as she continued to move her pieces. Was Nagasaki plotting to distract me from the game with small talk, or was there another healthier reason for her sudden curiosity?
I kept playing against the same opponent all the time. I knew her strong points and most of her usual tactics. I could easily predict how the first halves of our matches would usually go. But with a new opponent, I have to keep observing every move and prepare myself for the unexpected.
Nagasaki released her chin and moved her piece with a thoughtful "I see." As I couldn't see her face, I wasn't completely sure what the "I see" meant. I frowned and moved my own piece. Nagasaki did the same. Then it was my turn again. The way things looked, we were nearing the end game. By the way, I met a girl when I went to look for your bookmark in the library.
One with curly hair?
Exactly. Do you realize how much she resembles you when you were younger?
She does?
Nagasaki placed a hand on her chin, falling deep in thought.
Which part of us is similar?
The way you look at people. She glanced up at me for a short moment and uttered, "Yeah, you two really look alike," as if to reaffirm her own statement. Wonder if there's significance to that. As our game neared its end, Nagasaki began singing a song from an old movie, Daisy Bell. I tilted my book and gave her a hard look. Isn't that the song that Hal sings at the end of 2001?
Are you giving up?
Not even close. The pieces kept moving on the board with short clangs. Suddenly, an irritating knock on the door threw my mind into a jumble.
It's open!
Nagasaki responded. I checked my wristwatch, but there was still some time until noon. The door slowly opened, revealing a doll-like girl. She wore a gray blouse and a long blue skirt. Its hem lingered maybe only 10 or so centimeters above the ground. It was the same girl I met in the library. The girl didn't move any further from the door and instead looked around with suspicious eyes. She looked at me, then at Nagasaki, then at the chessboard between us.
Do you remember your promise?
Asked the girl as she looked at the notebook in her hands. Nagasaki answered that she did.
There's something I have to ask for the person who stays here. You told me I'll be able to speak with her.
Nagasaki leaned closer to my ear. The girl looked at us with knitted brows.
We were planning to meet with Ms. Nane's aunt in the afternoon, right? I'd like this girl to come with us if possible.
The girl's eyes were transfixed on the silver bookmark on my desk, but she looked away as soon as she realized I followed her gaze and instead glared back at me.
I don't mind.
Thanks, said Nagasaki in a small voice.
It's quite a mansion, isn't it?
Nagasaki looked over her shoulder. I swear this is the same corridor Takako... Either they're just reusing the same assets, or, like, this is the actual same building that Takako stayed in. Or is staying in, or whatever it is. I have given up trying to guess what's going on because I don't have a clue. It's possible they are just reusing assets, and this is a completely different building in a completely different part of the country, but... Wow. The girl was following us, keeping a moderate distance.
Well, that should be a given. The place used to be the residence of an influential family until it was sold off and remodeled following the war. Even among classic hotels, you'd be hard-pressed to find a place that preserved its historical authenticity to this extent.
I see, Nagasaki remarked. I heard the girl mumble,
"And I see you know nothing,"
in a low voice. As Nagasaki made an awkward smile, a voice called out to me from the window. I looked outside and saw Nane in a straw hat, leaning her back against a cart. It was filled with little shovels, scissors, and other such equipment.
"Good morning, Sachiko! Weather's looking pretty good today, hey?"
She tilted her head and her hat and looked at me.
Huh? Kozue's with you? I didn't realize you knew each other.
Nane waved at the girl next to me. She returned her energetic greeting back with a blank stare.
What are you doing? Just playing with dirt. I'm going to get some vegetables from the fields.
She patted the bag of dirt on the cart.
You okay with yam? Oh, it's one of my favorites. The forecast said it's going to rain in the evening, though. I know, but I'm not too worried about that. The weather in the mountains is usually all over the place anyway. So what are you up to, Sachiko? We were on our way to greet your aunt. Oh, I see. I just passed her in the lobby, so she's probably already waiting for you. I see, thanks. We'll be on our way then. Kozue's going with you too? Yes. That's quite the peculiar group you'd have there. Now I'm almost curious about what you're planning to discuss. Anyway, don't worry too much about my auntie. The more people there are to talk to, the happier she gets.
I'm glad to hear that, said Nagasaki. This is probably a good stopping point right here. Yep, that's a good stopping point. Pulveron. Huh. Alright, didn't see anything from Takako's perspective today, but there are developments. We met a new girl, Kozue, and Nagasaki is there, and I am so confused with this game, which is why I need to keep playing it so I can get answers! Answers! Anyway, that brings today's stream of SeaBed, a Yuri visual novel, to an end. I will be back next Sunday to continue it. I'll be back Tuesday to play something else. Thanks, Dim, for being here. Shout out to the lurkers. Shout out to everyone watching this on YouTube after the fact. On behalf of East Asia Soft, I have been Skull. Have yourselves a great day and a great week, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye. Oh, it's okay, Dim. Don't worry about it. Later, everyone.